So some people often accuse me of being biased when I talk about Christianity, simply because, well, I grew up naturally in a Christian household, and that's what primarily means the most to me, is Christianity has had the most effect on me, so naturally I would talk about it the most on my channel. But today, I'm talking about Islam, and I'm not going to go into too in-depth of the story, but I'm sure that you've heard about it, the terrorist attack that happened in Paris, specifically these Islamist terrorists who identified as Muslim and who praised Allah upon shooting a police officer, raiding the magazine office, and killing the cartoonist who was involved in making a satirical comic of the Prophet Muhammad. This is a magazine company that makes satirical comics as a whole, but in one issue they mocked the Prophet Muhammad and they lashed out with killing him. And for those of you who don't know, in the Quran, Islamic teachings, if a person mocks Muhammad in any way, disrespects Muhammad, that is punishable by death. The Middle East is a very scary place, and there's a lot of radical beliefs to the point of where if you do anything such as a woman driving, she will be put to death. These things are actively practiced and still endorsed in Afghanistan as of right now. I would say that Islam is the only practicing religion as of right now that honestly does everything in Afghanistan that the Quran teaches. It stones and kills homosexuals on the streets. You can't do that now in the United States. You will be tried for murder. However, in those other countries and even parts of Europe, there are radical practicing Muslims. Although the percentage is most likely small, but they still exist. That being said, I don't really want to talk about the whole terrorist attack. Rather, I want to talk about the Muslims who are condemning the actions of these terrorists in Paris who did this terrorist action. By the way, one of the people that were killed was actually a Muslim police officer. So a Muslim killed another Muslim, which I thought was really interesting. I saw the video and it was very gruesome of them literally shooting the cop, running up to the cop and putting a bullet in his head. It was very upsetting and made me angry for all the obvious reasons, as it should, but it just makes me not. One of the reasons that I don't talk about Islam very often is because I believe Islam is so easily displayed in the media as what it really is that I don't need to talk about it. Islam is not a religion of peace, and despite Muslims in the US condemning the actions that happened in Paris, you can't do that. And I say that you can't do that because you Muslims, who are probably awesome Muslims, who do not believe in terrorist actions, who do not believe in killing people who are homosexuals or slaughtering people who drive cars, because that's the more radical side in the Middle East, but you simply condemning them means nothing. And I say that simply because this is the easiest, simplest, no true Scotsman fallacy. You know, someone does something radical in your name, then you say, well, that's not a true Christian. That's not a true Mormon. That's not a true Muslim. You know, you can be an awesome Muslim, a guy who lives in the U.S. I don't generalize people based upon wearing a turban. My first thought is, oh, they're a terrorist? No. You know, that's stereotypical. That's generalizing people by what they wear, and I would never do that, and you shouldn't do that either. One of the biggest problems that I have with you Muslims in the United States is that you literally pick and choose, with most people in religions do, but this is more of a differing type of pick and choose, is these Muslims pick and choose what to believe in their Quran. I don't know how many people have studied the origin of Islam. You can pick up a secular book on Amazon. There's hundreds of good books on the origin of how Islam was widespread. Islam is not a religion of peace. It has never been a religion of peace. You cannot, as a law-abiding, awesome Muslim dude in the U.S., simply say that Islam is a religion of peace when the Quran explicitly states that people who do not convert will be stabbed by the sword. There are over 20 different Quranic passages in the Quran that specifically condemns and will execute anyone who either mocks the Prophet Muhammad, who either doesn't abide by Quranic principle. The most scary thing is that you Muslims in the U.S. abiding right now, these laws are still being practiced in this very day in the Middle East, in Afghanistan. And as far as I'm aware, not even Christianity and the whole Crusades and all that stuff, for the most part, even Christianity, we don't have people going out and killing innocent people in the name of Christianity. I mean, sure, there are probably a few Christian radicals out there, but it's nothing like Islam, where people are going out on the streets and just slaughtering innocent people, and specifically targeting anyone who mocks the Prophet Muhammad, like these people did in Paris. So one of the reasons I don't talk about Islam very often is simply because it's displayed so evidently and clear, even though the radicals may be a small percentage, is that is what Islam stands for. That's what it's always stood for. That's what I've always believed it to be standing for. You can be a Muslim and tell me, well, that's not what Islam is. Yes, it is. You can't pick and choose out of your Quran and say, well, we're going to ignore these passages where it condemns people who do not convert to be slaughtered, but we're going to like these passages where Muhammad teaches love and acceptance, but also condemns and commands people to be stoned who are gay. By all means, you're fine and dandy. Condemn the actions in Paris of what these Islamist extremists did, but it doesn't really help your case at all. I would rather die standing than be on my knees. That's what his last word, not his last words, but he stated that when he published that satirical magazine mocking the Prophet Muhammad. And I have respect for people who stand their ground. Art does not exist in Islam. If you depict Muhammad in any way that they don't like, they will threaten you. They will hunt you down. And most recently, I can't remember her name, but I read an article that was recent about this woman who grew up in Afghanistan, and now she came to the U.S., and she's actually a pornography star. And when people found out from the Middle East that she is now doing porn, they sent part of ISIS actually took a photo of one of the decapitated people that they decapitated and photoshopped her face on it and said, "We are coming for you." I mean, this is so bad that anyone who does anything against their religion, they flat out threaten, and some will even take action. And this was clearly demonstrated in Paris with this innocent cartoonist being slaughtered for mocking Muhammad. So what do I think about Islam? It's not a religion of peace. It's worse than Christianity on every single level. I would rather read the Bible rather than the Quran. And that is saying a lot, specifically coming from an atheist. One thing I can say about the Christian religion in the Bible is that it teaches you to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Share it. And if it takes effect, it will plant a seed in their heart, and then they will become a Christian. I'm saying that sarcastically, but that's honestly what it teaches. Whereas Islam is more as force them to convert or die by the sword. And that's how early Islam spread, is by striking fear into people, by striking war, and if anyone disagrees, you die. And how best to spread your religion in the early days? By killing people if you don't convert. So those are my thoughts on Islam. I'm in no way generalizing all Muslims by saying, I often see this when people discuss any type of Islam video or anything. People often think that other people are generalizing. I'm not generalizing. I'm fully aware that people who wear turbans and who are Islamic are not necessarily terrorists, who do not support those types of things, but this is more of a response to the people who condemn the actions in Paris yet don't really understand what the Quran actually teaches. And I'm not going to sit here and give you the hermeneutical passages of every single Quranic passage which specifically states to kill people, but there are a lot. Just get a secular book on the origin of Islam or a study of the Quran, and you will find a lot of interesting facts about Islam that you probably didn't know and what it endorses. Because as far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, Islam is the only practicing religion currently right now which still endorses and condemns and does everything the Quran actually teaches in the Middle East. And that is scary to me.